Okay, today I thought we'd start with a little bit of review over how to solve multi-step equations. In order to do so, you will either need a dry erase board or you'll need a piece of paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to present a problem to you. You're going to pause the video and see if you can go about solving the problem. If you can't, you unpause the video, watch the step, pause the video, and continue on until you get through the problem, repeating the steps. The idea is for you to be able to look back at the problem and figure out what you're not doing right in order to be successful when it comes to the quiz. So to start with, I thought I'd start by doing a one-step equation. Now remember, when we do problems and we're solving them for x, we're actually doing the order of operations in reverse. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Sometimes I like to refer to doing the order of operations in reverse as spooing. Kind of a nice little thought of how to do the problem. Okay, so the first problem we're going to do is x divided by -2 equals 8. If you need to, pause the video and see if you can solve the problem. If you can't, continue on, watch the first step, and then finish the problem as you can. So here we go. The first step in order to get rid of the dividing by -2 is to actually do the reverse. We're going to multiply by -2. So in this problem, I multiply both sides by a -2. Now by multiplying both sides by -2, the division cancels with the multiplication, leaving me x equals, and then 8 times a -2, a positive times a negative is a negative. 8 times 2 is 16. So I believe the answer to be x equals -16. Now I don't have to do any more steps because it's just x. If it was another number, then we'd have to do more steps. Now if I want to check the problem, all you have to do is take your original number that you started with and plug it back into your original problem. So we're going to plug it back in here for x. So we're going to have -16 divided by a -2. A negative divided by negative is a positive. 16 divided by 2 is 8. And hey, look, we got what we started with, which was 8. So I knew I did the problem correctly. So that's one-step equations. You can do it with addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. The next type of problem I want to do is what we call a two-step equation. Now, if you remember back to when we're doing two-step equations and we're remembering our order of operations, we actually deal with the addition and subtraction first. At this point in the video, you might want to pause it and see if you can solve the problem for yourself. If you can't, watch the next step and pause, and so on and so forth. The problem that we have is 5 times x minus 9 equals 41. So for the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to add 9 to both sides. There are no parentheses to distribute, so I just have to get rid of my adding by subtracting or my subtracting by adding. Now what happens when we do that is the -9 and the positive 9 cancel. We're left with 5x equals 50, because 41 plus 9 is 50. Now, I could stop, but I can't because there's a 5 in front of the x. Now, if there's a 5 in front of the x, that means 5 times x. So in order to get rid of that, I'm going to divide both sides by 5. The 5's cancel. I'm left with x equals 50 divided by 5, which is 10. And they're both positive, so my answer is positive. Now, if I do want to check it, that's really easy to do as well by using our order of operations. We take the original problem, and wherever we see the x, we put in a 10. So it's 5 times 10 minus 9. If you remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we take 5 times 10 first, which is 50, subtract 9, and we get 41. Great, my answer works. So since my answer works, the answer is x equals 10. Solving a two-step equation is not that hard to do. You just have to remember to add and subtract before you multiply and divide. The third problem I have is got a little more work to do. I see a bunch of x's, and that could become a problem because it's not like a two-step equation. So for this problem, we got to treat it a little bit differently. I'll first start by reading the problem so you can write it down. 18x plus 10 plus 6x equals negative 14. Now, whenever we counter these problems, normally we just have x's and a number and then equal to another number. Or if you're calling it mathematically, it's called a constant. So how do I deal with this problem? If you know what to do, pause the video and go ahead and do the problem. But if you don't, remember when things are on the same side, we combine like terms. We do not use opposite operations, we actually use the operation that is provided. You carry the sign in front of it. It's called the commutative property because we're reordering things in order to add them. If I have 18 x's and I add to it 6 x's, 18 plus 6 is 24, so I get 24x. Now, I didn't do anything to the 10, so the 10 comes on down in the problem, and it equals negative 14. Wait, now it's just a two-step equation. If you know what to do, pause and try the problem. If you don't know what to do, follow the next step. Well, two-step problems. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally says I get rid of any adding or subtracting first because we're working backwards. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And I get 24x because 10 minus 10 is 0. And I get negative 14 minus negative 10. Now remember, subtracting a negative 14 minus negative 10 is like adding a negative 10 to it. So if I'm at negative 14 on my number line and I take away 10 more, that's going to make it even more negative. So my answer is going to be negative, and I actually add together the numbers. 14 and 10 makes 24. At this point, we're at a one-step equation. It says 24x. 24x means 24 times x. So in order to get rid of the 24, I have to divide both sides by 24. Now 24 is a big number to divide by, but luckily 24 divided by 24 is just 1. But don't forget, you have a negative divided by a positive. Same sign's positive, different sign's negative, so the answer is actually a negative 1. My x comes down. So I believe that x equals negative 1 is my answer. Well, that's good and great, but darn, what do I do? How do I check my problem to see if it actually works? Well, you go back to the original problem, and everywhere you see a negative 1, everywhere you see an x, you're going to put in a negative 1. So it's 18 times negative 1 plus 10. Remember, parentheses are just multiplication, if you want to use parentheses or a multiplication symbol. 6 times negative 1. 18 times negative 1 is negative 18 plus 10. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. And in order of operations, on adding and subtracting, you go left to right always, like reading a math book or reading any book, in fact. So negative 18 plus 10 is negative 8. Take away 6 more from that, and that gives me negative 14. The answer to my problem said it should have been negative 14, which it was. So I did the problem correctly. So now we've done one-step problems, we've done two-step problems, and we combine terms with values on one side. So the next type of problem I want to encounter is, what if my x's aren't on the same side? Now remember, they don't have to all be x's either. They could be y's or z's or a's or b's. They all work the same way and the process is the same. Now, the idea is, though, that if you cross the center or cross the equal sign, you got to change your sign of your problem. So unlike before where we can just combine things on the left using the symbol provided, we actually have to think kind of outside the box. We got to cross the line. When I say cross the line, what I'm saying is there's kind of like this imaginary line right here. Okay, that equal to sign is a boundary line. Anytime I cross that line, I'm actually going to have to do the opposite operation. So the problem we're going to try is 24x plus 27 equals 12x plus 9. If you know what to do, pause the video and try the problem. If you don't know what to do, follow the next step. Since my x's exist on opposite sides of the equal to sign, I really need to get them combined. Now, by habit, I've had you try to always get the x's on the left. So we're going to continue on with that process. So what I do first is I say I have 12 x's on the right, so I'm going to move into the left. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 12x from both sides. I cross the line, I change the sign. So I have to subtract. Now when I subtract them, I get 24 minus 12, which is 12x, plus 27, because 24 minus 12 is 12, equals, and then I have a positive 9 that comes down. Well, awesome. I got a positive 9. Now it's just a two-step equation. If you know what to do, pause the video and do the problem. If you don't, go ahead and subtract 27 from both sides. If I do that, 27 minus 27 is 0. I get 12x equals negative 18. But Ms. Doran, 12 is not going to go into 18 when I go to divide it. Well, you got a little work ahead of you. We divide both sides by 12. And we've recently done fractions, so we know how to solve these types of problems. We reduce them. We ask ourselves, well, we could first reduce. They're both divisible by 2. So if I divide them both by 2, 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. But wait, 9 and 6 are both divisible by 3, so I can continue on. I can divide them both by 3. Now, if you didn't do it that way, you could have actually divided the whole problem by 6 before you even started. So we get negative 3 divided by 2. Now, negative 3 divided by 2, remember, is what we call an improper fraction. Now, to make it proper, we just carry the negative. We take 3 divided by 2. 3 divided by 2 is 1. We get subtract, we get 1, so we have a remainder of 1. Now, in order to write that, what we did was we wrote the whole number, 1. We take a remainder and we put it over what we divided by 2. So it's negative 1/2. So my answer is equal either negative 3/2 or negative 1/2 if you leave it in fraction form. You can go about practicing this type of problem. You can actually go ahead and substitute it back in for the x's. I'm not going to take the time today to show you how to do that, but I will show you how to set it up. So if we do this problem and we plug it back in, say I'll use negative 3/2. 24 times negative 3/2 plus 27 equals, oh, running out of room here, 12 times negative 3/2 plus 9. What should happen is when you plug that in your brain or calculator, these should be equal. The left should balance with the right. If it doesn't work, you did something wrong, and in that case, you need to get it fixed. If it does work, you're done. So as a review, my answer to the problem is x equals negative 1/2, and all I had to do was the opposite operations to move things to the other side. Once I did that, it's just one of our two-step equations.